If you're a fan of the weird, strange and true stories like me, delivered in a story format, then you've come to the right place. I will be uploading a couple times a week. If that's of interest to you, please give the like button a click and subscribe to my channel and turn on all notifications so you won't miss any of my uploads. Let's get to today's story. This story was submitted anonymously. I could not confirm any information about this story. So, you decide if it's true or not. Because of my father's job, my family moved from another state to a small town near Byers, Texas in the summer of 1970. I was 8 years old. My family consisted of my parents, my brother, and myself. We had a German Shepherd dog named Bubba, and he was 5 years old. For a German Shepherd, he was a large dog, and some people thought he was a wolf, because of his size. I had Bubba from the time he was 8 weeks old and just a puppy. He was the best friend I ever had. My father had located a farmhouse to rent, and we moved in around June 1970. I had overheard my father talking to my mother one night about how cheap they were able to rent the farmhouse for. They were talking about the house and why it would have been vacant for so long. The house was in good condition with 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, and a bathroom. My brother and I shared a bedroom and we had bunk beds. The farm had many acres with a corral and a metal lean-to barn. The only thing in the corral next to the barn was an old water trough that was about 3 feet wide and about 4 feet long. It was filled to the top with rainwater. I mention this because it becomes important later in the story. About 200 to 300 yards behind the house was some dense woods. My dad would leave for work early in the morning around 6 a.m. and not get back home until 6 p.m. He worked about 20 minutes away in a big city. My mother was a homemaker. It was during the summer, so my brother and I hadn't started school yet. We would get up in the morning and go outside and play with Bubba, and play around the house. Bubba was an inside dog, and he would go out to do his business when he needed to. He would at times wander off, but we would call him and he would soon come running up, and we would continue to play with him. He wouldn't go far from the house. A couple of weeks after we moved in, my father got home from work and we had supper. We settled down to watch TV before bedtime. Around 9 p.m. we started hearing a weird and strange howling sound, far in the distance, and coming from the direction of the woods. The howling went on for about 15 minutes or so, and all this time, Bubba was growling, and his hair on his back was standing up. My dad said it was just coyotes howling. A short time later, my dad was trying to get Bubba to go out the back door, so he could go to the restroom before we went to bed. Nothing my father could do would get Bubba to go outside, short of carrying him, he just would not go out. Bubba would normally sleep on my bed near my feet or on the floor. Around 3 a.m. Bubba started barking and looking in the direction of the back door. We could hear the howling again, but this time it was much closer. After a while, the howling stopped and Bubba settled down. A few days later on Friday, it started raining in the afternoon and it rained all night long. We had just started watching TV after supper. Bubba started going crazy. He would run around the house like he was looking for a place to hide or something. We heard a loud noise come from the corral area, like metal hitting the ground. My father got up and grabbed his .30-30 rifle and a flashlight. My dad, brother and I went outside, and stood on the back porch. My dad was shining the flashlight around. The rain was coming down pretty good, but you could still see things a little. In the corral was the water trough that was filled with water, but now it was tossed about 15 feet towards the house from where it was originally. I thought, how could someone lift that heavy trough up and throw it that far? My dad shined the flashlight near the lean-to, and he swears he saw something for a quick second standing there. It was dark brown or black. He later told us, it was about 7 or 8 feet tall and huge. When my dad shined the light near the barn you could hear something running away that sounded heavy and large. He said years later he didn't tell us at the time so we wouldn't be scared. I was only 8 and my brother was 10. We went back into the house and Bubba was hiding under the kitchen table and he wouldn't come out from under it for hours. He had pissed all over the kitchen floor. Later that night, we were woken up again by Bubba's barking. My dad looked out the kitchen back door but said he didn't see anything, and we soon went back to bed. It was Saturday morning and I heard my dad go out the back door. He would normally drink coffee on the back porch early in the mornings on the weekends. He soon rushed in and was yelling for my mother to come and check something out. He was like pushing my mother out the back door and onto the porch. I heard her say, "What the hell is that?" My mother never cursed that I knew of, and my brother and I got out of bed to see what was going on. My father went and got a camera, and took some pictures of a large set of footprints that stopped about 5 feet from the back porch. They looked like they were 14 inches long and very wide. You could see the tracks came from the corral area, up and over the metal fence that was 5 feet high, and towards our porch. It then turned left and went towards the woods. Because it had rained all night, the tracks were easy to see in the mud. My dad called a work buddy and he arrived about 30 minutes later. He was carrying a large rifle, and he and my dad, who had his 30-30, started walking the same path as the tracks. My brother and I started walking too, but my dad yelled at us to go back to the house. I sat on the porch and watched them get farther and farther away. It looked like they were at the tree line when all of a sudden, they started running back as fast as they could. My dad told my brother and me after he got back that we were to never go to the woods. My father never spoke of what they saw or why they ran back. That night, before it got late, my dad chained Bubba to the back porch. On the porch was a wooden post holding part of the back porch up, and he had the chain around the post. We ate supper and started watching TV. We had forgotten that Bubba was outside chained to the porch. All of a sudden, Bubba started barking violently and was screaming. We heard a loud noise like the house was falling in, and then we didn't hear any more sounds from Bubba. My dad jumped up from his chair and wasn't even thinking, and ran out the back door to get to Bubba. Bubba and the chain were gone. The post that was attached to the concrete on the back porch was snapped off at the bottom and splintered. The porch roof was leaning down and was only being held up by the other posts still attached. My brother and I were crying, and saying we needed to go find Bubba, but my dad said it was too dark, and that he would call some buddies in the morning and they would go search for him. We didn't sleep much that night. In the morning, a few of my dad's friends showed up, and all of them were carrying rifles. My dad let my brother and I go with them. We all started walking towards the woods. My dad was seeing the tracks left by the chain in the dirt. As we got closer to the woods, we started seeing pieces of Bubba. First, we saw his rear leg and then another, then a front foot and his torso. Soon we found his head and another front leg. Bubba had been torn to pieces by this creature. He didn't look like he had been eaten. He was just torn apart by something powerful. My dad and his friends never went into the woods after this beast. I think if I would have been older, I would have found it and killed it myself. I had known Bubba from the time he was a puppy until his tragic death. He was my best friend and I never had another pet since him. I miss him every day. We moved 1 week later from the farm. My father passed away many years ago, and recently my mother went to be with him. My brother has moved to the other side of the United States, and we speak on holidays. I searched through my parents' belongings, but I didn't find those pictures that were taken in the summer of 1970, so I have no proof other than I know what happened that day. I moved away and went to college in another state. Got married, and I have my own family now. My children always ask to get a puppy, but I tell them no. I don't explain why. I recently went back to that old farmhouse during a business trip. The land is now clear, and the house and corral are all but a memory. I had made a small cross out of 2 branches held together with rope for Bubba's grave, but that too is now gone. If you like this video, please click like, subscribe and turn on notifications. Thank you.